Are you thinking about getting into sales, or maybe you have just started a sales career and you really love the idea of being paid to literally communicate? I mean, genuinely, that's what it is. It's using your brain and your words to communicate a message that makes people move to buy. It's one of the most amazing careers because you get paid on results, not necessarily time. Well, if that's you and you love the idea of it, but you're feeling a little bit nervous and not really sure where to begin, today I want to give you some essential advice for beginner salespeople, beginner sales girls, salesmen, and really wherever you are in your sales journey. I know for me, like I would consider myself a sales expert, but I would still click on something like this because I know the importance of foundational principles to selling. And so that's what this is today is six really important essential pieces of your sales foundation. Now, I was really thinking about this video of how I want to structure it and what types of information, because I could talk about mindset when it comes to sales. I could talk about how to like become more credible, how to be like really attention getting and hold attention. But what I decided is that really giving you tactical things to not say and tactical things to fill in and fill in with the things that you're not going to say anymore is going to be the most beneficial for you. I want you to think about these things as almost like your GPS telling you the next turn to take. You can just kind of enjoy the ride and enjoy the experience of driving in the car when you know what your next turn is. And that's exactly what these principles are and these kind of language changes are. It's ways to kind of just relax and enjoy the sales conversation because you know exactly what turn to take next. So let's get started. The first and, in my opinion, the most important thing for you to stop saying in sales conversations is the word I. And honestly, any variation of the word I. I, me, my, us, we. Those words are so easy to say. It's so easy to talk about yourself. Everyone loves talking about themselves. Everyone easily could talk about themselves all day long. And I know it might feel extreme for me to say, hey, stop saying the word I completely. But honestly, sometimes you have to go so extreme so that you can get back into this middle ground. I know, like I did 75 hard a couple of years ago, which is extremely extreme. It's 75 days, 2 gallons of water, no cheating on a meal plan, 2 workouts a day, 10 pages of reading, no alcohol. It's just like an intense plan. And, as I was starting to do it, I was like, this feels so intense for me. Like, I don't really necessarily, quote unquote, need this intensity. But what I found is that going so extreme helped me find a much healthier middle ground when I was done with 75 hard. And so that's how I want you to think about taking this language out of your vocabulary. I, me, my, us, we. You lose people when you start saying the word I. And I want to give you a couple examples here. I was coaching someone one time, and she helped create personalized resumes for college students. And so she was selling typically to the moms of the college students. And I was watching her try to sell, and she would say things like, I'm a triple certified resume builder. I can get your son into whatever college he wants. I have been doing this for 20 years. We are a team of people. And it's honestly like there's nothing quote unquote wrong with it necessarily, but listen to how much better this sounds. You will have a triple certified resume builder to work alongside with your son. This is going to help him get into the college of his dreams. In fact, working with a certified resume builder will increase his chances of his dream college by 70%. And you knowing that he is really reaching his full potential is probably what you want, right? Do you see how it was all just you, her, and she got to think about her son in that conversation, not think about you and all you've done in your career? I recently went to St. Thomas with my family. I went with my husband and my 2 boys and then my in-laws. And since my in-laws came, my husband and I got to sneak away for a little dinner by ourselves. And we were sitting at the bar because I feel like you get the best service at the bar. And so I love to kind of listen to conversations at the bar as well. And our waitress was speaking to the couples on each side of us, and she was communicating what was available and what was not available on the menu. And she kept saying this sentence: I don't have the pork tonight. I don't have the ribeye tonight. I do have the swordfish. I do have the mahi mahi. And like I said, there's nothing wrong with that, but genuinely just switching it to you can enjoy the mahi mahi, you can enjoy the swordfish, and you can enjoy the filet tonight on the menu. And genuinely just speaking in, hey, here's what you can experience, not what I do have or what I don't have. I'll say one last story here. When I first learned this principle, this was actually the first sales principle that I learned from my dad, probably coming up on 9, 10 years ago. And he said, Macy, I want you to play a game with yourself. Okay. He said, I want you to play a game. And next time you're with a group of people, try not to say the word I at all. And it just happened to be that I was going to a little like get together that night with some friends in a neighborhood. And I was like, okay, I'm going to try this. And I sat beside a woman and I just focused on her. She said, I've lived in this neighborhood for 30 years. And I said, oh, that's so awesome. Tell me about your houses that you've lived in this neighborhood. Because the neighborhood that I lived in, people will typically hop houses. She told me a little bit more. I asked her about what she did. I asked her about her children. And we kind of separated. And later we found each other again that night. And she said, Macy, I have been looking for you. I wanted to get your phone number and invite you and your husband over to dinner one night because I just so enjoyed talking to you. And I realized, wow, like she feels so loved that she loves me more. Like because she feels seen, because she feels heard, I am loved so much more. And I think it can be really easy to think about, especially in selling, especially. You think the best way to build rapport is to let people know that you understand them. So I want you to imagine, here's my two people, here's one person, and here's you. Someone says, I went to the Bahamas. What most people do is say, oh, really? I love going to the Bahamas too. Oh, cool. Yeah, we went to the Bahamas in December. Oh, that's awesome. I go to the Bahamas in on New Year's. And oh, cool. I like to stay at this resort. Oh, we stay at this resort. And it just becomes this like competition of who does what within the Bahamas. And what you're trying to do, like your heart is to really connect with them. And so the best way to connect with them is for it to sound more like this. I went to the Bahamas. Oh, cool. Who did you go with? I went with my family. That's amazing. What was your favorite thing that you did on the trip? We got to go to this amazing restaurant. Oh, that's so awesome. What kind of food did you get? What was your favorite part? You just can keep going deeper and deeper with this one person, focused on them, loving them, being curious about them, and you will way improve your reputation, your credibility, and ultimately your sales. The second tip I have for you is to speak in positive words. It's very easy to know what you don't want in life. Just ask a woman what she wants to eat. Okay. She's like, I don't know what I want to eat. And then they're like, do you want Chick-fil-A? And she's like, no, I definitely don't want Chick-fil-A. It's like, we always know what we don't want. It can be challenging to think about what we do want. In fact, I like to think about it as, people have all the puzzle pieces, but they don't have an idea of the box of the puzzle of how good their life could really get. And so when you are communicating as a salesperson, as you are communicating with someone else, it is your job to speak in the language that could reflect the top of that puzzle box. And it can be normal human nature, like I said, to speak in the negative. So, for example, you might be tempted to say things like, yeah, with this product, you won't have acne anymore. You won't feel stressed. You won't be dragging at 3 p.m. You won't dread going out to date on a date night with your husband. You won't hate getting dressed in the morning. And those are really top of mind for you. And it's really top of mind for everybody else as well. Because remember, it's natural to think about what's not going well. But your job is to actually flip it into positive words. You will have clear skin. You will have thriving energy at 3 p.m. You will be so excited to go on a date with your husband. You'll actually look forward to walking into your closet and get ready to crush the day. Why is this so important? Because your job is to help people picture things. If they can't picture it, it's not persuasive. And that subconscious mind is where people start to picture things in their minds. But our subconscious mind does not have a picture for like a negated word. So words like don't, won't, can't, we don't have a picture for that. So we cannot picture that negative word until we picture the other word. So if you say you won't have acne, you have to picture acne before you can imagine acne not being there. You won't be stressed. You actually like feel stress in your body. You see yourself being stressed before you think about, okay, I'm actually not that. And so you're kind of placing these images in their mind of things that they don't want, even though you're saying you won't have it. So they will say things like, I don't want to have to, spend money on this. I don't want to spend my time on this. I don't want to have acne. I don't want to. And you're going to take those words, put it in that sales girl software, as we say, and spit out the positive words, which will become the puzzle box cover that they don't even know is possible for them. Next is to have an organized presentation kind of ready in your back pocket at all times. Now, you probably are hearing the word presentation and you're like, exit this video right now. The last thing I want to do is have a presentation. I think about, you know, English class where I have to present something. And all I really mean with it when I say a sales presentation, an organized presentation, is really your ability to communicate one singular point. So sometimes you'll hear people kind of word vomit all the problems that they have and all the misconceptions that they have and all the things that they don't want. So, for example, I've been in conversation with someone before and they're like, I don't want to be pushy. I don't want to be salesy. This is going to take too long. I've tried it all before. And I have this natural human instinct to be like, okay, let me just cover all those things. Here's what it means to be salesy. Here's why, what you've done in the past hasn't worked. Here's why this is different. I want to just talk about everything that they just said. But your job is to pick one singular point to communicate at a single time. So, for example, let's say you are selling honey. Okay. You're at a farmer's market, you're selling honey, and someone comes up to you and they're just like, hey, you know what? I have the worst seasonal allergies. I've tried literally everything. And someone keeps telling me to try seasonal honey, or local honey, but I just don't think it could work. I don't drink tea. I don't know how I'm going to get it into my diet. I feel like I always try this stuff and I just never end up using it. It just sits on my counter and it just doesn't work for me. And so you're going to feel a little defensive and want to talk about all those things. I want you to pause and just ask a few more questions. And maybe you learn that this guy who's telling you all this stuff, maybe you learn that he's been on Zyrtec every single day for his whole life that he can remember, and he can't even think clearly until he has that pill of Zyrtec that opens up his mind because his allergies are so bad. So, what I want you to do is to really build the value around how there is a way that he can actually open up his eyes and have a clear mind before his feet even hit the ground. In fact, maybe he has a podcast and you can really show him the power of a clear mind and how all these content ideas and his $1 million content ideas can come from simply waking up, having that warm cup of coffee, and being able to sit down and really brainstorm first thing in the morning. Now, I know he had all this other stuff that he doesn't drink tea and that he's tried everything before and that he doesn't even like honey. But I know he's had all that stuff. I know. But I want you just to land that one point and check in with him and see, hey, is this valuable enough to where all of that stuff doesn't matter? Like if you told him that he could have $1 million breakthrough simply by having a clear mind when he wakes up in the morning, don't you think the fact that he doesn't drink tea is a very small concern that probably isn't even top of mind for him anymore? You don't even need to touch that. Go in on one point that matters the most in that moment. And, maybe you offer him a really amazing point that just drives home. You think it's going to change his mind, and maybe it doesn't. And that's okay. You're just going to move on to the next singular point. Remember, people remember one thing the best. They don't remember two, three, five. They remember one. So take that one point and drive it home with stories and encouragement and positive words and make it all about them and see where it lands, and then move on to the next point and the next if you need it. The fourth piece of advice I want to offer you is all about overstatements. And, it's like kind of a normal thing to say things like, oh, this is the best. I'm obsessed. Nothing else works. I always do this. Oh, that never happens. All those words are overstatements. Always, never, obsessed. All I think I already said always, but anything that is an overstatement because it literally cannot be true. It is not true that you've tried everything. It is not true that nothing else works. You can't know that. And you physically cannot be obsessed with multiple things. And I know that this is such a teeny tiny little thing that feels like it's not a big deal, but it really, really is because what ends up happening is it subconsciously kind of sets you up to under deliver, right? We want to understate so that we can over deliver. So, for example, we offer currently in our mastermind Voxer access. And the first thing I'm not going to do is tell someone that I always respond right away. I always respond. I don't. I actually tell people, I understate by saying, I will respond to you within 48 hours. Now, my personal standard kind of internally in the back of my mind is 12 hours. I like to respond to everyone by the end of the day, but what I communicate in a way that helps me and sets me up to over deliver so that their expectations are lower. And that's the same thing with your words. When you say I've tried everything and nothing else works, you're really setting them up to honestly be a little um like hesitant and kind of like, skeptical is the word I'm looking for. Kind of skeptical, like, I don't know if that's the case. So all simply shifting it to, I haven't tried out everything, but from everything that I have tried, this seems to work the best. I really I don't always do this every single day, but I try to most of the time try to get X, Y, and Z done by this amount of time. This helps increase your credibility and helps people trust you with a little so that you can ultimately be trusted with a lot. The fifth piece of advice that I think it might be one of the most important pieces of advice is to really watch your oversharing. I know that, we live in a time where sometimes silence is a little bit uncomfortable. And so you're like, oh, let me just offer up all of my personal life so that I can feel the silence and feel like I can be trusted. The phrase like you have to be like, known, and trusted in order for people to buy from you. I agree with that, but I think the definition of being known needs to be cleared up. Being known is about being transparent, but transparency isn't saying all that is true. Transparency is saying what is true. So there's stuff that can be happening kind of in the back of your life and in the background of your mind that doesn't have to be shared. I really want you to see yourself as the person that shows up and does the job and does the job only. Honestly, I sometimes the more that people know about you, the less that they want to work with you. Like, honestly, just because someone is a mom and has that title doesn't mean I trust them enough to leave my kids with them, right? Like, your title isn't enough. You have to really present yourself in a way that is extremely, extremely professional. So, I'm going to give you a couple examples of where trust has been broken and, in my personal life and in my professional like working relationships so you can see how it can really affect your business. So I've done lots of renovations in my home and for me, like, I'm just a really busy person. Like, I have my calendar that I take very, very seriously, and I schedule it a week in advance, and I honor my calendar like I honor just about anything because it's a reflection of me keeping promises to myself. And so, I've had contractors come to my house and they will do things like pull out, they'll see that I have like baby stuff around. And so then they'll pull out their phone and show me pictures of their grandkids. And I understand what they're trying to do. They're trying to build that rapport and show me like stuff about them so that I can know them. And with all the love of my heart, like, I just want you to come and do your job well, and not really overshare about your life. I have, when I had my second baby, I was in the hospital and there was a nurse change, and the nurse that came in, she was amazing. Like you could just tell she knew what she was doing. And she didn't even really say a word. She just carried herself. She was so incredibly diligent and she was focused and she was double checking things. And she just had this aura about her, like, I'm here on a mission. And before she even said a word, I actually spoke up first. I said, Hey, I am so curious to know how long you've been doing this. It feels like you are a vet. And she had a beautiful response. She said, Oh, I've been in labor delivery for 25 years, and it is my mission to help women have the birth of their dreams, which is really, hello, it's like that puzzle box on the top of a puzzle. She kind of told me a little bit of a payoff type message in that one sentence that made me think, oh, wow, I could have the birth of my dreams with her. And I felt safe and I felt so excited that she was my nurse. And so I looked over at my husband that morning and I said, Hey, we are having this baby today because I wanted to have this baby with her as my nurse. Now, all the moms out there, you know that you spend a lot of time with your nurses, okay? And you have a lot of empty space to be able to have conversation. And over that day, the nurse started to just really open up about her personal life. She was telling me that she was going through, a crazy divorce and her kids were calling her because they needed her car and she only had one car. And so she didn't know how to get the car to her kids. And she just had like a lot going on and her phone was ringing a lot. And so she was telling me why her phone was ringing. But honestly, her phone could have been ringing and I could have thought it was just like the nurse calling. I would have had no idea what was actually going on. And the thing about her kind of sharing all of that with me, it wasn't that I didn't trust she'd be a great nurse because she clearly was an amazing nurse. I started to have this doubt that she was able to focus. I started to have this doubt that she was able to really like have my payoff, that birth of my dreams, right? Have that payoff top of mind for her as the day went on. And what's funny is I looked at my husband after I kind of started to feel that way and I said, Hey, I really want to have this baby, but I said it from a place of anxiousness, not a place of excitement. And it's just so wild how like less words and more demonstration of you being the professional, less oversharing and more over delivering in your actions is what increases your credibility and is what makes people want to continue to work with you. I think about this with like growing up, I was always in sports. And, my team would win and we'd have like an amazing celebration. And then all the players would like go to dinner afterwards. And my coach would always like huddle us up, have a moment of, Hey, we just won. Congratulations. Good job. But he never really went to dinner with us. All the tennis players would just go to dinner ourselves. Like he separated himself from like, Hey, I'm here to do my job. I'm here to be your coach. I'm here to encourage you. But after that, like I am like leaving because my job is done. So I just want you to think about yourself as, Hey, I'm the professional. I'm here to do my job. I'm here to really encourage people. And I think a good litmus test is like, okay, is what I'm about to say going to enhance someone's life? And if it is, please by all means share it. And if not, don't. I know sometimes I'll share this concept and people will say things like, well, how do I like know where the line is with certain people and how that works? And honestly, that's a really good question. I definitely have like a sales girl hat where I'm in certain places with my clients. I like to keep it really, really specific and clean. But I also just want to remind you that, a lot of times the people that you want to overshare with, they're not really equipped to handle all of your stuff. They're not equipped to carry it. They're not equipped to even help you. This is where really hiring professionals is going to be important for you. Hire life coaches, hire therapists. I use both of those things for the heavy things in my life that I really need intentional, deliberate time with. And it's not just for anyone and everyone. And that goes for Instagram and also your actual like client conversations as well. My sixth and final piece of advice for you as you are becoming an amazing salesperson is to say people's names. Say people's names. The name of your own name is the sweetest sound of any language. And I often hear people say things like, "Oh, I'm not good with names. It's so hard for me to have, remember names." But if you are going to be in sales, that's not even an option anymore. You have to really commit to learning names and remembering names. And I have a couple of tips for you that I want to give when it comes to remembering names. But specifically, why names are so important is, first of all, like, people love to hear their own name. But second of all, it really helps regain their attention as you're in sales conversations. So it's very similar to the first point that I shared in this video with, which was, hey, stop saying the word I, say you, because it lights up their brain. Same with someone's name. Like, just think about you being in school and your teacher like said, "Oh, that's a great question. Macy, that's a great question. Lindsay." You kind of like perk up a little bit when you hear your name. And as you're in conversation with people, naturally you'll kind of lose their attention. It's human nature. And so saying someone's name is going to perk them back up a little bit and re-engage with what you're saying. So here's a couple of tips I have for you. Number one, say their name back to them. So they'll say, "Hey, my name is D." And you can say, "Oh, D, it's so nice to meet you, D. My name is Macy. D, tell me, how long have you been coming to this church?" Or something like that. Just say it multiple times in that first interaction. And then as they're leaving, you say, "It's so nice to meet you, D. I'll see you next time." That will help kind of ingrain it in your mind. Number two, go ahead and associate it with something. So it's interesting. I actually met a woman named Dee at church last Sunday. I would always run into her. And finally, I was like, "I'm Macy. What's your name? I see you all the time." And she said her name was Dee. And I actually know another girl named Dee. And this woman looks about like 40 years older of the girl D that I know. So instantly I was like, okay, I know a D. I'm thinking of the letter D, and I'm saying her name D and trying to associate it while also saying it back to her. So association, like if you have a cousin or an aunt or maybe a famous person that you know, you can kind of associate it like that. One thing I personally like to do for people to help them remember my name is I will actually have an association to offer for them. So I'll say, "Hey, my name is Macy. It's just like the store." That's how you can think about it. And it's so interesting. Every time I say that, their brain kind of goes, "Oh, yeah, I'll remember that." And it's like, "Oh, yeah, so you can offer an association for someone. And then also you create associations for people as you are saying their name. And then the third and final tip for remembering someone's name is ask the story of how they got their name. Typically, you only ask stories of kind of interesting names. You're like, "Wow, I've never heard that name. Where did that name come from? Tell me the story of how you got it." But I actually would challenge you to ask maybe more common names. Ask where they got their name from. You'll be really surprised at how special some people's names are and the stories that they have about them, and you won't forget. I know for me, for example, like my mom had a best friend named Macy when she was in college that she was just really inspired by. And I just think I've never met her. I don't even know what her last name is, but I will never forget that. And I think it's an interesting story that if you were to tell someone else, they likely would remember it as well. So say it back to them multiple times. Try to associate it with something. And lastly, ask them the story of how they got their name, and it'll help you remember. So just to recap for you, number one, stop saying the word I, me, my, or us. Use those positive words no matter what they say, make it positive. Number three is to have that organized presentation ready to go, which really just means communicate that one single point at a time. Watch those overstatements, watch oversharing, and lastly, say people's names. I hope this was helpful. Click below to subscribe, and we'll see you on the next one.